I'm Dr. Sacha Obaid, your host for Behind the Beauty, the official North Texas Plastic Surgery podcast. We are on season 1, episode 5, and I actually have 2 special guests for you today. I have 2 of our fantastic associates, Dr. Jacob Carlson, Real Dr. Carlson, if you're not following him on Instagram, which if you're not, you need to. You're going to see some fantastic content on there. And then Dr. Jeremy Bosworth, also known as Real Dr. Boz on Instagram. Right. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we've got a really fun topic for you guys today. We wanted to kind of switch it up, talk a little bit less about surgical procedures and really talk about what it takes to be a plastic surgeon. I get this question all the time from, young people that are considering going into the medical field, from medical students, college students, etc. So let's kind of dive into it. Dr. Carlson, you are a native originally of Illinois, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
But then very quickly made your way down to Arkansas.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. You started out at St. Louis University for undergraduate. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Sir.
And then went from there to the University of Arkansas for medical school.
Yes, sir.
And I'll let you pick it up from there and tell us the rest.
So again, I went to medical school at the University of Arkansas. Following that, I did a.
So that's 4 years after college now. So how many years did we go to college for?
4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
All right. You didn't take any bonus laps.
No, I did not.
All right. So after high school, we did the 4 years of college. We did the 4 years at University of Arkansas for medical school. So now we're 8 years after college. Okay, what happened next?
And then I did 5 years of general surgery.
5 years of general surgery. So okay, that's 13 years out from high school.
Yes, sir.
All right. So surely by now you're ready to go, right?
Pretty close. Still got a little bit more.
A little bit more to go. Okay.
After that, I did a 3-year plastic surgery residency at the University of Florida.
3 years. Okay. So now we're at 16 years out of high school.
School.
You're done there though, right?
One more.
One more. Okay.
After that, I did a fellowship at North Texas Plastic Surgery.
All right. An aesthetic fellowship there. So 17 years after high school.
Yes, sir.
To get to where you are today.
That's correct.
That's a quick little journey.
Yeah. That is an incredibly long time. I love it. Dr. Bosworth, I think you had a kind of a similar journey. Why don't you break it down for us?
Yeah, I did take the bonus years track. Actually, out of college, my plan was law school.
Okay.
Worked at a law firm for a year, planning to go, studying for the LSAT. Ended up deciding I didn't want to do that. Wanted to go to med school instead. Had to go back and do some of the prerequisites for medical school. So between college and medical school, I actually took there was 3 years between those two. So I did the College, University of Arizona.
How many years were we at the University of Arizona?
4 years at U of A.
4 years. Okay, bear down. There we go.
Yes, bear down.
So 4 years, and then we did
I had the 3 year gap between schools where I was working and doing
Okay.
other stuff. 4 years of medical school at St. George's University.
Yeah.
I did 6 years of general surgery.
All right, so that was we're gonna cut out the 3 year gap in fairness. All right, so we're gonna we'll say 4 years of college. 4 years of medical school. That's 8 years of training.
Yeah.
Okay. Then 6 years of general surgery.
6 of general surgery.
That's 14 years.
Yeah, in New York. And then I moved to Birmingham, Alabama for my plastic surgery training, UAB, for 3 years.
Okay. So now 17 years after high school. Okay?
That's right. And then I made my wife very happy when I told her we were going to do another year of training. To do the aesthetics fellowship at North Texas Plastic Surgery.
Fantastic. So 18 years of formal training plus 3 years of
in between
figuring out what we're going to do. Yeah. So 21 years after high school to get to sit in that chair today. Is that right?
Yeah.
And that's just the beginning of the journey, right? Because from here now, then the process to get board certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery. And I want to burn that name into our listeners' ears. So I'm going to say it again. American Board of Plastic Surgery. Do not accept an imitator. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So 21 years after time after high school,
Yeah.
18 years of which was training. And we said for you, Dr. Carlson, 17 years after high school, all of which was training. And yet there's still more to go to become board certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery. So talk a little bit about that process and what's going on next.
Yes, sir. So after you complete your training in plastic surgery, there's a couple different routes you can do that. We don't necessarily need to delve into that. But after you complete your training, you have to take a series of exams. The first one is a written exam that is usually during your final year of training in plastic surgery. And then after your training is done, so for us, it was pushed off by a year by doing an aesthetic fellowship, but you have to collect all of your cases that you perform in that first year.
Now that test, fun test, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or as well, we like to call it at our office, the quiz.
The quiz, exactly.
And we've all passed the quiz. That was fun, right?
Yes. So
okay.
Written
quiz behind us.
There you go.
Exactly. So the written quiz is over with. So
there you go.
After that, again, you collect cases for a year. You submit that to the American Board of Plastic Surgery. They review those, and then they quiz you over those,
Yes.
as well as some unknown cases in a very small private setting, and then they determine whether or not you've passed that oral examination portion. So there are two components to
and
that.
with that oral examination component, right, like they actually collect photos of the patients that you did.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Made sure that you're delivering quality aesthetic results, and they judge those photos.
Yes.
And then they ask you questions about those photos.
Absolutely.
Usually try to tell you that you did kind of a terrible job, but that's
It's a scare tactic.
It's a scare tactic. No, I agree. But and then they also quiz you on unknown photos, right?
Yes, sir.
So a incredible amount of training that it takes to become a plastic surgeon. All the while your friends, I'm sure, were out with real jobs, real incomes, etc. I see you nodding your head, Dr. Bosworth. I'm sure your wife has reminded you of that along the way.
Yeah.
Your sugar mama, as we call her.
Thank goodness for her. We've been able to survive, but it's been a long journey.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, let's delve a little bit into that journey, because I think it's really important what actually makes up that journey and what the results are. So those general surgery years, a lot of people don't realize that as plastic surgeons, we spend a tremendous amount of time actually training in general surgery. And those general surgery years are really there to teach you two things. Number one, to teach you how to operate. And number two, how to take care of patients. Because as we all know, at the end of the day, as much as we like to think of plastic surgery as this sort of happy-go-lucky, smiley all the time field, it's still real surgery. And we're doing real physiologic changes for these people. And so those years are critical for teaching us all how to manage those situations. So I know for you guys both, as fully trained general surgeons, you guys have run the trauma halls at the University of Florida, the University of Arkansas. So you guys have dealt with major motor vehicle collisions, gunshot wounds, stab wounds, you name it. Is that right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, all the way through plastics training too, because weren't just doing aesthetic surgery and that, so we were seeing all sorts of trauma stuff.
Yeah. So once you've learned how to take care of those sick patients, you've learned, and I think, and I'll come back to that point in 1 second, Dr. Bosworth, but I think that's important. The reality is when I go to see someone with an issue that I may be having, right? Whether it is an issue in the construction at my house, or an issue with a legal something, or an issue with my pool or something, I want to know that the person that's sitting in front of me isn't scared of what's happening, because they've seen and done a million times more complicated than the problem that I have, right? And the reality is, because we've spent so much time in those general surgery years were prepared for that, right? Because it does happen. These crazy things happen. I can tell you guys, and I know that each of y'all have seen some crazy things along the way. One of the scariest things that I ever saw is when I was in plastic surgery. I was actually operating or going to operate on a newborn baby that was having some plastic surgical issues. The anesthesiologist actually lost the airway on the baby. Baby was not breathing at all. And the anesthesiologist could not establish the airway. And thankfully, because I did those years of general surgery training, in my case, I was at Parkland at UT Southwestern for that, and I ran the trauma hall there for a period of time. I was able to immediately grab a scalpel and make an incision in the little baby's neck, get right into his trachea, put a tube down it, literally difference between life and death in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, scary stuff.
It's scary stuff,
Yeah.
but I know you guys have all done
Yeah.
slash trachs
That's what
in
it's
your training in general surgery.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys don't ever have to do that in plastic surgery,
Yeah.
but you can.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're exactly. Yeah. You want everything to go smoothly. You hope that it does, but in the that 0.1% of times where it doesn't, you want someone who's going to have a cool head and be able to manage the situation.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing is, we're training to do this. We're doing these procedures, tons and tons of times. Sure, the dentist can pop in a breast implant and
Sure.
it can go right every,
Of course.
a lot of the time. But if something doesn't go right,
Everything's going right until it's not, right?
Until it's not, exactly. Yeah, you want somebody who's going to know how to handle that situation, whether it's a small wound to a major complication. Things happen. It's surgery. It's major surgery. And, for people who are well trained, those things happen a lot less of the time.
Of course.
But when it happens, you want somebody who knows how to handle it, who's going to still be able to give you a good result and keep you safe.
Exactly. And so, fast forwarding then beyond those general surgery years, we then transition to formal training in plastic surgery. Because while the general surgery years definitely teach you how to operate and how to physiologically take care of a patient, they don't teach you anything about how to operate beautifully. Those are two very different things.
I hope none of my general surgery attendings are watching. Listen to this.
Well, if so, they
But
will.
yes.
They will be thankful that you are prepared now for all the emergencies and all the credit you gave them there.
I think
But
I've
yes,
done them proud at this point. So.
yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget one of my general surgery favorite stories was we had a young man who had been shot in the abdomen. And so, as you guys know, you have to do the exploratory laparotomy, right?
Old X-lap.
Yes, the old X-lap, right? So for our listeners, that basically means an incision that starts at your breastbone and goes down to your pubic bone, right down the middle, right?
As fast as you can get.
As fast as you can get in there. I see you smiling, Dr. Carlson. Are you missing those days?
No. I get my adrenaline rush other ways. No,
Yeah.
I don't miss that at all.
So of course we open him all the way up. We take care of the gunshot wound. We take care of the bleeding, etc. It's all done. And I was at the younger part of my general surgery years, so I had a senior general surgeon with me at that point, and we're going to close him up. And this young man had a tattoo across his abdomen, just above his belly button, which spelled something out, which we won't get into. But my attending at the time, who's the head surgeon in the room, basically starts closing him up, and it really looked like my kindergartner had done it because half the letters on one side were about an inch higher than the letters on the other side, and I couldn't take it. I'm like, you can't do that. I mean, I'm like, you see what's happening here, right? And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, and your point?" I'm like, "It looks terrible," and he's like.
That's not why they came to me.
Exactly. And so I think right then I knew, I need to do plastic surgery training because this is never going to work for me. So then we go to those plastic surgery years to learn those things. And so tell me a little bit about those years for you, Dr. Carlson. They were 3 years, you said, at the University of Florida?
3 years at the University of Florida.
And what happens during those 3 years?
So I think a lot of people think when they hear that you do plastic surgery training, they immediately think of the cosmetic and the aesthetic side of things. I was a little shocked myself, even when I got into the training, just how broad plastic surgery is. So not only is it the aesthetic and cosmetic component, but there's a lot of reconstructive surgery. There's craniofacial surgery, there's hand surgery, there's microsurgery, all of which are combined into that 3 years of training, and you do different rotations in those particular things. So there is the aesthetic component to it, but it's also mixed in with basically surgery on just about any other part of the body, and you could be doing different surgeries on different parts of the body all in the same day. So
a baby and a great grandma.
Exactly.
Yes, yes. But there are principles of aesthetics that you're learning with those reconstructions, right?
Absolutely.
And you may be working on a baby's cleft lip, but and that's super important to learn how to fix that problem specifically. But at the same time, you're learning about what creates a beautiful lip.
Oh yeah.
Right? And you're learning that a millimeter difference in how you line that lip up makes all the difference in the world, because literally a 1 millimeter asymmetry in how you line that up is noticeable at what we call conversational distance, right? That means that when you're sitting across from someone at lunch and on a date, you're going to notice that it's not lined up right. And you're taught things like aesthetic subunits, which is a really fancy way of us as plastic surgeons saying that if you want to rebuild something, you have to rebuild the whole shape. And there are certain shapes that are critical in plastic surgery that the eyes are drawn to.
Even if you get lucky and get some of these things lined up, I mean, how you handle the tissues, knowing the anatomy and the blood supply, all these things really matter. So you can get lucky on some of them, but if you're not good on the other parts of it that, is harped on for all of our training of plastic surgery, it's going to affect the results.
Absolutely. I always tell my patients, plastic surgery is really about, well, I should say great plastic surgery is really about knowing how to safely push the envelope, right? Because at the end of the day, when we start talking about doing a mommy makeover and we start talking about making sure the results are great on the table and they last, ultimately it comes down to, hey, how tight can I really pull these breasts together so they sit as high as they can and yet still heal?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? How much can I liposuction and cut off to narrow the waist?
Yeah.
But still get it to heal.
Yeah. And that's honestly I don't even know that I realized going into the fellowship why I did the fellowship, because you don't know what you don't know, and pushing the envelope if you're doing this stuff every so often is a lot harder to do than if you're doing it every day, and you can, make incremental changes to kind of see how things go. And that's really how the fellowship helped me out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And that's where doing that extra training beyond plastic surgery. So both Dr. Carlson and Dr. Bosworth were fully trained plastic surgeons, and they elected to come to North Texas Plastic Surgery to spend a year doing an aesthetic fellowship. So an additional year of training, even though they were already 17, 18 years into training, they decided to spend that extra year to learn the nuances of aesthetic surgery, because at the end of the day, as great as all of those years of plastic surgery training are, they're still not sufficient to deliver the truly superior results until you really dive into those nuances. How's it helped you, Dr. Carlson?
Well, it's for that exact same reason. For that 1 year, we focused on aesthetic and cosmetic surgery. So in our plastic surgery training, it's 3 years where you will see some aesthetic cases over the course of those 3 years, but you're on rotations. So you might get concentrated pockets of aesthetic surgery, but then that's spread out over more rotations or more gaps in doing those similar surgeries by doing the reconstructive things. So it kind of dilutes that experience for you in the sense that it's been a long time since you may have seen it or done that type of surgery. Whereas this year has been consistently the aesthetic cases back to back to back every single day. And again, I think it is a phenomenal way to learn how to do those cases for the reasons that you mentioned, pushing the envelope, because if we were out on our own right now, I think it would be a little daunting to try to do that in your first year of practice, not having the experience of yourself or the other surgeons there. And it has really, again, just hammered home the principles of the surgery, pushing the results, getting consistent, good results, and again, just a short period of time.
And I have to tell you guys, both Dr. Carlson and Dr. Bosworth, they're delivering some fantastic aesthetic results. So as we're sitting in the studio today, I think they're both about 3 weeks away from finishing their fellowships, but obviously are staying on with us. I've had the pleasure as a mentor to teach a lot of young plastic surgeons the art of aesthetic plastic surgery. And I have to tell you that these are two of the most talented plastic surgeons and aesthetic plastic surgeons that I've ever seen. We are so blessed and so lucky to have you guys with us. And I have to say that the results that I see you guys getting today, they're better than the results that I was getting 10 years into practice. They're really, really great. And you guys should be really proud of yourselves as far as that goes.
Thank you very much. That means
Yeah,
a lot
of
to hear
course.
from you. I know you've been a
That means
huge
a lot.
mentor to us. So
I think it's also
appreciate that.
a testament to the training. 'Cause
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
I would be very timid and being out on my own, not having someone to push me and say, maybe you can do a little bit more here, maybe you can do a little bit more there.
Yeah, and I mean, I trained with some fantastic attendings at UAB. My co-residents were amazing surgeons. Some of the smartest, nicest, best surgeons I've ever come in contact with. But going and doing these years really gives a huge jump start. They'll figure things out. It'll take time for sure, because what we see doing this stuff every day, these big surgeries, and pushing the envelope safely, little bits at a time, are just a huge help. And it's things that experience we may never have gotten a lot of these things without doing a fellowship. So it was important.
Yeah, no, I think it's been great. I think it's been great also for, for our patients, because obviously they've been able to get the benefit of y'all's experience with that. But I think it's also great because as a practice, we are pushed by our young people, because they've got ideas and thoughts and things that they've seen and they bring in, and they have questions for, I know many of our listeners are moms. How many times have you realized that you thought you knew something until your sixth grader started asking you questions about it? In my case, my eighth grader really pushing me with her algebra 2 and her geometry stuff. It's not until you actually have to go and teach someone something that you really, really master the subject. And so it's a really great collaborative environment that we have, because not only are we teaching our fellows, in this case, Dr. Carlson, Dr. Bosworth, but, they're pushing us to be better. And so I always tell my patients, okay, when they tell me, hey, what's the best breast augmentation or the best mommy makeover you ever done? I say, it's going to be the next one I do, because each and every result builds and builds and builds on the last one. So, we've talked about all of this training that you guys have done. When we look out then, or our listeners look out wherever they are in the world, and well, I guess maybe we should just talk about the American listeners to begin with. Is this series of years in training, is this the same for everyone that they find on the internet and to do their surgeries?
No, is the short answer. I mean, you can, if you just look up plastic surgeon on the internet, you will get a number of different people who are trained in different specialties, different, who have gone one route and they do a cosmetics fellowship, and then they may call themselves a plastic surgeon on their website. If, in other countries where there's even less regulations maybe about what they can and can't use on their websites, may have things up there that aren't even true. So yeah, there's a number of different routes people can take.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I remember I was in the OR. This was about 3 years ago, and I had one of my assistants come in, and she says to me, Dr. Obaid, you've got to check out this lady's transformation on Instagram. And I'm looking at it, and I was, wow, that's a great BBL. It's fantastic, actually. And I'm looking at it. And I said, God, I don't know why, but this looks really familiar. and racking my brain. As I get home that night, and I started scrolling my Instagram page, and I realized, oh, now I know why it looks so familiar, because it was one of my patients.
It must have been fantastic.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I probably, that was my real modest, humble brag there. But really, this is true that, I've had some of my results taken and posted by other surgeons, both internationally and actually even in the United States. So it's kind of scary when you talk about that. Not everything that you see online, shockingly, is true. And you brought up an important moniker that I wanted to circle back to, because Dr. Carlson, Dr. Bosworth have spent, 17 and 18 years respectively investing to get to the point where they are going to be part of a very small fellowship of surgeons who are either board certified or board eligible for the American Board of Plastic Surgery. But there is a moniker floating around of cosmetic surgery. And I want to warn patients about that, because patients oftentimes think that cosmetic surgery just means elective plastic surgery, but that's not true at all. The term cosmetic surgery, Dr. Carlson, I'm sure you know this. Is that a term that's used by the American Board of Medical Specialties?
I don't believe so.
No, it's not, right? So I see you smiling there. Tell us a little bit about what the American Board of Medical Specialties is, and what is cosmetic surgery.
So the American Board of Medical Specialties is a board certifying agency that basically governs
the only board certifying agency, right?
Yes.
So they certify the boards that certify us.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. So we are currently board eligible for the American Board of Plastic Surgery. Hopefully we'll be board certified within the next about a year and a half from now. But they, again, are governing all these other board certification agencies. But cosmetic surgery is not covered by the American Board of Medical Specialties. It is not recognized as a entity. It is basically a kind of a catch-all term for these cosmetic procedures.
So you're telling me that no one is regulating this term cosmetic surgery, and that people are using this term who have none of those years of training that we're talking about.
Exactly.
So my primary care doc who is, checking my blood pressure because I got a lot of stress. What can I say?
We didn't help with that.
Yeah, exactly. No, you guys have been great. But so my primary care doctor has been checking my blood pressure. He can call himself a cosmetic surgeon?
He can call himself a cosmetic surgeon, but he cannot call himself a board certified plastic surgeon.
Yeah, he can call himself, and he can even go get a 1 year of cosmetic surgery training after having no prior surgical training at all, and then go out and
117, what's the difference, right?
A weekend versus 17 years.
Right. And look, there's some good surgeons, like I said before, there's some good surgeons out there who you can get a good breast augmentation from, but sometimes things go wrong too. But also a lot of these guys who are going into a cosmetic surgery, maybe people who maybe didn't get into what they wanted to, and for whatever reason and maybe didn't even finish a full residency. There's a lot of, they're just not regulated enough to be able to, they don't do what we do and haven't been trained the way that we have. So it's tough.
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting thing, right? One of medicine's dirtiest little secrets is that if you get these two magic letters behind your name, you're literally allowed to do anything. So tomorrow morning, Dr. Carlson, if you decided you wanted to go do a heart transplant, can you do that?
I technically could, yes.
Yeah. And do you have any formal training in heart transplants?
No.
Okay. So Dr. Bosworth, tomorrow, if you woke up and decided, hey, I really want to go ahead and deliver babies today, could you do that?
Yeah, I could. Yeah, you won't see it on my Instagram page tomorrow.
But but if you put it on Instagram, then you would definitely be able to do it, right? You'd be official, right?
It's got to be true.
Maybe you could call yourself like a cosmetic gynecologist. I don't know.
Let's make a fellowship.
There we go. We can call it the American Board of Cosgenology or something. You know what? You would deliver only the prettiest babies. that would be what your selling point was, right?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we're joking around, but this is actually a serious topic because within a few miles of our Southlake studios here, you can get your breast augmentation done by an orthopedic surgeon. You can get it done by an OBGYN. You can get it done by, believe it or not, a general practitioner. And my personal favorite, by your family dentist. And people don't realize that the person that they're seeing doesn't have those years of training. And as you can imagine, horrible things happen. And so I can't tell you how many, quite frankly, uncorrectable aesthetic complications that I have seen from these surgeons who are pretending. That's what they're doing. They're playing plastic surgery, right? Mm-hmm. They took a weekend course. Maybe they spent a couple months watching someone, but they don't have any actual plastic surgery training. So they're playing plastic surgeon, in their spare time in between delivering babies or in between
fillings.
And they, they get into trouble really quickly. And it's sad because, believe it or not, the American Medical Association doesn't care. All right? The Texas Medical Board doesn't care. You'd think they would be regulating these things, but they're not. And it's sad and it's confusing for patients. I know our patients are in a variety of their own specialties, but I mean, could you imagine asking the guy that's hanging your drywall to build you a pool? I mean, he's a contractor, I guess, but does that mean he can build a pool? I wouldn't think so. But for whatever reason, people are doing it in medicine with our bodies. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so I want to really urge our listeners, whether you come to have surgery with us or with, many of the other fine board certified plastic surgeons here in North Texas or, the surrounding areas, do your homework. Just because someone has an Instagram page doesn't mean they're trained in what they're doing. Okay. Yeah, I know. Not everything is as it seems on Instagram, is it, Dr. Bosworth?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that whole time that you spent as a French model that's on there, that was true, right?
That was real. How'd you find out about that?
No, these things are serious and it's important. Please do some investigating. Those years that we've talked about that Dr. Carlson and Dr. Bosworth have invested to become board eligible by the American Board of Plastic Surgery are critical. And please understand when you're looking at advertisements that when you see board eligible or board certified, it is a vague term because the general practitioner who's going to do your Brazilian butt lift up the street advertises himself as board certified, but he leaves off that it's in internal medicine.
Yeah.
And how many years of surgical training does an internal medicine doctor have, Dr. Carlson?
I believe it's 0.
0. How many months?
0.
0.
Yeah.
I guess it'll be all right. So, you don't want to go to the doc who spent the night at the Holiday Inn Express, right? Or whatever. Was that the commercial,
Yeah.
right? So these things are really important. So in conclusion for our listeners, it is critical that you see a plastic surgeon who is board certified or board eligible from the American Board of Plastic Surgery. And please understand the years that Drs. Carlson and Bosworth have invested to get there, and understand that that is what's going to get you these absolutely beautiful and safe results. Dr. Carlson, Dr. Bosworth, real Dr. Carlson, real Dr. Bos on Instagram. Thank you very much for being our guests.
Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate you having us.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed this podcast, like, link, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thank you so much.